Good morning, this is Thomas from thomasyoungauthor.com. Today is August 9th, it's 7:30 a.m. It's Sunday. Happy Sunday. Today I want to talk to you about, two subjects. The first subject is, I want to talk some more about, a practice that is becoming ever more popular in this country, and it's called, assisted suicide. And that is, presented to us, as a form of freedom. You can choose, the end of your life. And the political party of the Prime Minister is very, engaged in basically getting ever more people to choose, assisted suicide, because if you have a bad life, what reason is there to live? So, these people, they have no money, they have all these problems, they have, psychological issues, they are drug addicts or alcoholics. Why should we keep them around? I will talk some more about, I will expose 2 more piggies. Well, one I already did, but I'm gonna link a video where you can see how he looks. I don't know if he lives any longer. I think he died, but I'm not sure. But another one, is still active in this town. He's a volunteer running or help run the queer community center in this country. And I'm also going to link a video of his, so you can decide for yourself what kind of person you're dealing with here. Things like, abortion and, assisted suicide in this country go under the euphemistic expression medical ethical question. Because you see, these questions have no longer to do with morality. They are just medical procedures. And in this country it is called euthanasia. Now in the country where I'm from, these things, Germany, these things, during Nazi Germany were also called euthanasia. So that's a term, that's an expression you cannot use in Germany, because you see, the Nazis started, gassing people who with sorts of mental health issues. That's how basically all the killing began. You see, the Holocaust, what they call the Holocaust, was not a decision. So okay, let's kill all those Jews. Let's let's gas them. No. That was a continuous process. And at the beginning stood, the murdering of people with mental health issues, and first experiments with, putting them in gas chambers. And I wonder, because in this country, if you go to a psychiatrist and you say, I want to die, you don't have to put in, a great deal of effort to get that done. These people will sign that off like nothing. And they tried that with me. And it was not only that the psychiatrist tried this, and that is something I can prove, because that's in the file I received from the last psychiatric facility I was at. You see, it says there that, the psychiatrist, that's his name, let's call him Dr. Death. He says in the file I received, well, should we consider putting Thomas to sleep, because he has all these problems, and he's constantly ending up in the psychiatric facility. So why don't we just let him die? And they said, no, we cannot propose that to Thomas, because You see, if because you know that that doesn't happen overnight. There's a period in between, of course, and he says, no, we cannot do that, because in the meantime Thomas will do something so fucked up crazy that we should not even go there. And I think he was right about that. But he was also, knowingly or unknowingly, assisted by my family, because that's also what they try to do. So you have to remember, I told, let's call that person my caregiver. I told her because a friend of mine, who was also a victim of, severe gang stalking, he chose that route. So he chose, assisted suicide. And I told my mother that. I said, yeah, he has done, assisted suicide. He's dead now, or he's about to die. And I told my mother that, and the caregiver. And then an hour later, or 2 hours later, a sibling of mine calls me and says, that person didn't even say hi. She said, you have my blessing. I said, blessing? For what? Yeah. So for them, by telling that story about my friend, they acted as if I decided on doing that. This is how they tried to manipulate me into that. And from that moment on, they were telling all the people in their surroundings about, oh, Thomas has decided to do assisted suicide. And then later, I don't know if it was later, yeah, before, the psychiatrist, tried to do it, or invented that idea. I mean, this is how this goes. I mean, assisted suicide is not about freedom. People, especially people who have nobody to rely on and who have only hostile people surrounding them, they can be tricked into doing this. And when I was young, I had many people in my life, warning me about things like this. I mean, not necessarily in this context, but in other contexts, within my family, said, you watch it, people will do such horrible things. And, I now know. And back then I was like, oh, don't know, people are not like that. Oh, believe me, they can be. Yeah. And I wanted to talk to you some more about, the Piggies, because I'm going to link 2 videos. And one is an older piggy. I think his name is Hans or something. And he's linked to Tom and Berto. I mean, he and his partner. Well, and I told you before, Tom and Berto, they are as trashy as they come. So they present themselves as that, and they go basically after the trashy people and try to get them into the piggy network, or kill them, or get them for prostitution or whatever. But what Hans and his partner were doing was something different. They were sort of educated people, and what they would do, they would invite the people to their house. They would have the opposite approach. They would say, oh, look, we have all these books, and we're educated, and we are these cultivated people, and if you come, we will cook you a nice meal, and you will get a glass of wine. And this is how these networks always operate. They go after really, let's say, naive people who are impressed by such things. And then they give them little scraps, and then, if you, they have stories told about them, and and if you're lucky, you get invited to their house, and if you're even more lucky, I mean, one of the guys will penetrate you. He will perform penetration. I mean, this is how this works. I mean, this is how this world works. I mean, this is not only in the gay world, but this is how they operate. And in the beginning, the first times I went to the Gay and Lesbian Association, I was around, 16 years old, and how old was I? That was 1998, 1999. And then a friend of mine, a guy who tried to befriend me, and he invited me there, and then he didn't show up. And then that Hans guy was there. That was, of course, a setup. And then I was talking to him for hours, and he was giving me all this beer and alcohol in order to figure out what I was and what it was all about. But what he found out when I was 16 already was that what he noticed, you cannot impress Thomas with such things. So they never invited me to their house or anything. So they were from the beginning, oh, Thomas is a piece of work. This is going to be very, very difficult. You know, and these two were also probably later involved in the killing of my first boyfriend. They must have. I mean, my first boyfriend lived in the house of that guy who lured me to the Gay and Lesbian Association and tried to befriend me back then. And there's another Piggy who is an active volunteer at the Queer Community Center. Now that Queer Community Center is not linked to the sort of official Gay and Lesbian Association in this country. It is a private initiative and they're proud of that. But they receive funding from the municipal government. And not only that, they organize pride marches, which are now about to come. And you can go to the municipal offices of this town to get a free pride flag. Can you believe that? Now, I will link a video of his. You just watch that video and then you think what that guy is all about. I mean, and it's not only this video. He presents himself on that website. He says he's an influential person in the queer community. You call yourself influential? Then he goes in the, let's say, the precarious neighborhoods of this town and then gets people to come to the queer house because, you see, no decent person would ever go there. So they recruit people and then he sings like silly songs, you know, Lady Gaga and all the, you know, all the Jezebel music gay people are supposed to like. You know, and he knows, I mean, he knows how to fool people in this town because we discussed that earlier. You know, in this town you have to present yourself as this good person. You know, he's also a social worker. I mean, you know, sort of a lot of people, you know, in this town, especially when you talk to them, they think just because someone is a social worker or, you know, a nurse or something, they're somehow good people. And he knows that, and he takes advantage of that in a really fucked up way. And I cannot believe, and he must be linked to Tom and Berto and the Piggy Network. This is how these people conduct themselves. You know, their behavior is weird and strange, and in a way, it is authentic. But not everything that is authentic is good. And you can see that in his video. So I invite you to watch this. Okay, that was it for today. Have a good Sunday. Bye-bye.